Hey everyone, Will here, and in this video we're going to be talking about different ways that you can connect to and use your PyTop 4. We're going to be talking about using a screen, keyboard and a mouse. We're going to talk about using VNC from your laptop, and we're also going to be talking about the PyTop display cable and enabling FurtherLink. Now before we start, there's a couple of things that you're going to need depending on how you want to connect. First, make sure that you've got the green PyTop display cable that came in the box with your PyTop. And then depending on how you want to connect, make sure you either have a display with an HDMI input and a keyboard and mouse, or a laptop. Now the simplest approach to using your PyTop 4 is going to be to use a screen and a USB keyboard and mouse. So I've got a second camera set up here so that you can get a better view of what I see from here. And so let's look inside the box and find out what we need. So we've got the PyTop, we'll set that aside to one side. We're going to be needing the HDMI connector on this, so that's this one on the right. And then we're also going to be needing the PyTop display cable, that's the green cable inside. So let's get that out. And so for now we're just going to put everything else back to one side because we won't need that for this. Let's pop them over there. So take the green PyTop display cable, and you'll notice that this display cable looks a little bit like a normal USB-C cable, but it's not. We created this special cable to allow us to connect to both an HDMI display or to a laptop via USB. Now you'll notice that there's a small notch in the cable, and it's important that you align this notch correctly with the PyTop when you plug it in, otherwise it won't work. So if we take the edge of the PyTop here, you can see we've got this green connector port here, so we want to align the notch and connect directly to that. Next, you're going to need the HDMI adapter that we've just found from the box, and you're going to plug this into the other end of the cable, again making sure that you align the notches on the connector and the cable. And finally, we want to connect this HDMI cable straight into our monitor. So plug the HDMI cable into the HDMI port of your monitor, and there we go. If your monitor has more than one HDMI input, then you just need to make sure that you've got the correct input selected on your monitor. So in the case of this one, I've plugged into HDMI 2, so I'm going to make sure I've got that selected as the source. Next up is going to be plugging in your USB mouse and keyboard. So in this case, we've got the USB mouse here. It's really straightforward. We're just going to plug it straight into a free USB port on the side, and we'll do the same with the keyboard. And it's as simple as that. Okay, so now we're ready to turn on the PyTop 4. So to do that, we're going to use the power switch on the side, that's here. So you want to just switch that until you see the green light turn on. And you'll notice that the mini screen on top of the PyTop will display the PyTop 4 logo. And within about 30 seconds, that should be replaced with system information. And at about the same time, you should notice that your HDMI screen will come to life with PyTop OS. Now, if for any reason your mini screen does not light up, make sure that you have an SD card inserted into the SD port. There should be if you've just got it out of the box. And you also want to make sure that your PyTop has power, so if the battery's out, make sure that you plug the power into the power socket. If you don't see PyTop OS appear on your screen, make sure that you've got the cables connected correctly, and make sure that you've got the right input selected on your monitor. Okay, now let's take a quick look at the mini screen on the front of the PyTop 4, which has access to some important settings, including VNC and FurtherLink. VNC will need to be enabled if you want to remotely log into your PyTop and view it from a laptop, and FurtherLink will need to be enabled if you want to push code remotely and execute it from Further, our learning management system, or LMS. Now both of these settings should be turned on by default, but sometimes students can mess around with the settings and they can accidentally get switched off, so we'll take a quick look at how to make sure they're turned on. So to access the settings, you'll want to click the yellow circle button, and we'll see it says Settings. We'll click it again to enter the Settings menu. And then using the arrows here, we can scroll through the different options available. So this symbol is for VNC. So you want to click the circle. You see right now it's got a cross, that means it's turned off. If we click the circle, see that's now a tick, which means VNC is now enabled. If we scroll down again, we'll see this box with the F in it. This is for FurtherLink, so we'll want to click again and we'll see the tick, and that means that's enabled as well. And the final setting here is really only necessary if you know what you're doing. This is for SSH. And if you do know what SSH is and it's relevant to you, then you can also enable that here by clicking the circle again, and it's tick. And once you're done, you want to click the X button here to exit back out of the settings. Okay, so now that VNC is definitely enabled, let's look at using it. But first, what is VNC? Well, VNC stands for Virtual Network Computing, which doesn't really tell us much, but what it allows us to do is to connect to another computer's desktop via a network. This means that you can access the PyTop 4 desktop from your laptop or computer, which is really cool. As we said, VNC allows us to connect via a network, and so it's really important that you understand that there are a number of different network interfaces available on your PyTop 4. So let's look at that briefly. There are 3 network interfaces on your PyTop: Wi-Fi, a 1 gigabit physical Ethernet port, and also a USB OTG connection that is available via your green PyTop display cable. We're not going to go into network theory here, but it's important to know that each of these interfaces will link to a different network and, most importantly, can have different IP addresses. The IP address is simply 4 numbers joined with dots and allows computers to find each other on a network. By default, your OTG connection is set up with an IP address of 192.168.64.1. Your Wi-Fi will normally be told its address when you connect to a network. You can view the Wi-Fi IP address using the mini screen on the front of your PyTop. Finally, your physical network interface will also be configured when you plug it in. We're not going to be covering the physical interface in this video, but do reach out to the support team or check our website if you need to learn how to use it. So why are we telling you all this? Well, VNC uses quite a bit of bandwidth, which means it uses quite a lot of data over your local network. If you connect to VNC using the display cable via OTG, then you'll have a ton of bandwidth all to yourself and your experience should be very smooth. If you connect to VNC using the Wi-Fi IP address, it will also work fine as long as you don't have too many other devices connected on your Wi-Fi network. On the other hand, if you have 20 PyTop 4s all attached to the same Wi-Fi network and they're all trying to use VNC at the same time, you may suffer some problems because the network will not be able to cope with the amount of local data required. Something to keep in mind. If you have poor Wi-Fi signal strength, for example because your Wi-Fi router is a long way, you may also have some problems. Of course, if you connect using the display cable and the cable pulls out, then you could also have a problem there. So ultimately the way you connect is up to you. All different ways work and have strengths and weaknesses, and the important thing is that you understand how to use both of them. Next, if connecting with a laptop, you may also need to install VNC on your laptop. You can install RealVNC client from the RealVNC website, that's realvnc.com, or you can install the Chrome VNC app from the Chrome App Store, which can also be used from inside the Chrome browser. Now both of these work really well, but for this video we'll be using the RealVNC client. Okay, so to use VNC, the first step is going to be to connect our PyTop display cable to the laptop so we can use USB OTG. So, as before, with the display cable, take the PyTop and connect the display cable into the green port, making sure that the notches align correctly. And then on the other end of the cable, if you've already got the HDMI adapter connected, you'll want to remove that, so get rid of that, pop it to one side. And we'll want the USB dongle that we had in the box, so we'll take that. And as before, we want to make sure that we align the notch on the USB dongle with the notch on the display cable. So let's align those and connect it like that. Now it's really important to note here that even though the PyTop display cable looks like an ordinary USB-C cable, it isn't, and it does have a few extra features, which means that if you have a laptop like a Mac, which has USB-C ports on the side, you can't connect the cable directly in without using an adapter. You will have to connect the USB-A adapter first and then connect through something like a dongle like this one that has USB on the side. So I'll plug my adapter into the side and then I will connect my USB cable. Obviously, it's worth saying that if you do have a laptop that has an ordinary USB-A port, then you won't need to use that adapter that I've got there. Okay, so now we're ready to turn on our PyTop. As before, we'll be using the power switch on the side, wait till the green light comes on and we'll wait for it to finish booting up. So once the PyTop has turned on, we're ready to open VNC on the laptop, so let's take a look at that now. So once you've opened up VNC, you should see the VNC viewer window, which looks a bit like this. So you want to type in the IP address that we've talked about for USB OTG, which is always going to be 192.168.64.1. Once you're ready, hit enter, and it will ask for a username and password. Now by default on the PyTop, the username is Pi and the password is pi-top. If you want, you can click remember password, which can be useful in future, and then we'll just press OK. And here we are on the desktop of the PyTop. Now this is the normal PyTop desktop, but if you haven't logged in before, then you'll be directed to the PyTop onboarding page, which looks a little different. And there you have it, it's as easy as that. I hope you found this video useful, and if you've got any more questions or if you run into any problems, head over to the support section of our website for more tips and tricks.